A while back, I took you to a hole in the ground. Honestly, I've taken you to a few holes in the ground at this point. But that particular hole was in fact a crater created by Union troops during the American Civil War, who detonated an immense amount of explosives below the Confederate lines. Spoiler to that story, the Union also found a way to lose that battle. I'll link that video at the end of this video, which is also about a big hole in the ground, a crater. Both of those respective holes in the ground were created by explosions, which were at the time some of the largest man-made blasts ever.
In the early months of World War I, French troops had stopped the German advance toward Albert at La Boiselle in September of 1914. As winter approached, both armies began constructing elaborate underground fortifications, launching an era of subterranean warfare. When British forces assumed control of this sector from the French allies, they recognized the challenge posed by the German stronghold at Schwabenhof. In late 1915, the 185th Tunneling Company initiated work on what would become the Lochnager mine. A devastating German countermine killed 18 of those British personnel in February of 1916, and work would commence with the 179th Tunneling Company continuing the project from March onward. This excavation formed part of General Douglas Haig's comprehensive strategy for the Somme offensive, designed to ease pressure on French forces defending Verdun. British planners intended to detonate 19 separate mines moments before launching their infantry assault. The Lochnager operation became one of the most ambitious, involving 27 tons of ammonal explosives positioned in twin chambers beneath the German fortifications. Military leaders anticipated that eliminating these defensive positions would create breaches, allowing their troops to penetrate enemy lines with minimal casualties. British engineers commenced the Lochnager project on November 11, 1915, naming it after the trench that served as their starting point, Lochnager Street. British trenches often used common road names from London and England to help soldiers navigate the maze of offshoots. Similar to the American miners I mentioned earlier, these tunnelers were predominantly coal miners from across Britain. They operated under extraordinarily hazardous conditions, employing hand tools to avoid detection while facing constant threats from cave-ins, flooding, and German mining teams. Work transitioned from the 185th to the 179th Tunneling Company following that February tragedy when the German explosives killed 2 officers and 16 enlisted men. The underground warfare created a deadly game of cat and mouse, with both sides attempting to locate and destroy their opponent's tunnels through small explosive charges called camouflets. The psychological strain was immense. One tunneling captain described the terror of listening for enemy activity, spending 30 minutes at a time in deadly silence, wondering whether sounds indicated German work or merely his own heartbeat. Post-battle surveys revealed that British and German tunnels came within 5 feet of each other, with the Germans abandoning their chamber when they realized the British threat. The completed mine featured dual chambers connected by a Y-shaped access tunnel system. Engineers first excavated a 90-foot vertical shaft through chalk bedrock, then extended laterally 300 yards toward German positions. The massive explosive charge filled both underground chambers, with additional ammonal explosive packed into the connecting tunnels themselves, one branch extending 60 feet, the other 40. British planners deliberately overloaded the mine to ensure a substantial crater rim that would shield advancing infantry from German machine gun fire. This overcharging decision would prove both spectacular and ultimately counterproductive.
At precisely 7:28 a.m. on July 1, 1916, Captain James Young triggered the Lochnager mine along with 3 others at La Boiselle. The explosion left a crater 200 feet wide at its base and 400 feet across at the rim, and it completely obliterated 300 to 400 feet of German defensive positions, as well as the occupants therein.
Contemporary accounts describe this as the loudest artificial sound in human history to that point, reportedly audible in London. Debris launched nearly 4,000 feet skyward before crashing back to Earth across a wide area. However, the tactical results proved disappointing. While the explosion destroyed the immediate German strongpoint, surviving defenders quickly repositioned to exploit the crater's advantages. German machine gunners established positions on both sides of the new crater, transforming what should have been a breakthrough point into a killing field. The British 34th Division spearheaded the attack with approximately 8,400 troops from 12 battalions. Following standard doctrine, soldiers advanced in successive waves at walking pace, maintaining tight formations with officers leading from the front. The open terrain of no man's land provided no concealment for the attacking forces. Disaster struck within minutes when German machine gunners, having survived the bombardment in deep shelters, emerged to establish devastating fields of fire. Within 10 minutes, the leading battalion suffered 80% casualties as German weapons swept the exposed infantry across the wide battlefield.
British forces achieved only minimal success. While the flanking attacks failed completely, troops did manage to capture the crater, as well as a small section between La Boisselle and Lochnager. However, these limited gains came at an enormous cost to human life.
The casualty figures were staggering. British forces lost 5,100 men before noon in the Mash Valley. The Sausage Valley area near Lochnager crater witnessed over 6,000 casualties, echoing the American Civil War battle of the crater, where concentrated fighting around a crater led to similar devastating losses. The 34th Division suffered more casualties than any other British division that day. Military planners had anticipated capturing La Boisselle village within 20 minutes. Instead, the division suffered over 11,000 casualties while achieving no meaningful territorial gains. Despite creating the world's largest artificial crater at the time, the operation resulted in complete tactical failure. Combat continued beyond the initial disaster. By early morning on July 2nd, elements of the 9th Cheshire Regiment from the 19th Division reached the crater area and secured nearby German trenches. From these positions, they successfully repelled multiple German counterattacks throughout the following night and morning. Medical teams began evacuating wounded personnel on the evening of July 2nd. The next day saw limited British advances southeast of the crater, gaining small amounts of territory against light resistance. The Worcestershire Regiment finally secured the immediate crater vicinity on July 3rd, 2 days after the original assault. La Boisselle village eventually fell to British forces on July 4th. Ironically, Captain Young, who had triggered the massive explosion, suffered wounds on July 8th before visiting his creation. He recovered and lived until 1949, never seeing the crater that made his name part of military history. Following the war's end, a cafe was constructed near the crater site. While smaller craters across the battlefield were filled during reconstruction after the Second World War, Lochnager remained untouched but largely forgotten. The site gradually became overgrown and was eventually used somewhat inappropriately, serving as a motorcycle track and a legal dumping ground into the 1970s. Richard Dunning, a Guildford resident whose father worked as a bus mechanic, first learned about Lochnager through John Mansfield's book, The Old Front Line. After visiting the neglected site in the early 1970s, Dunning became determined to preserve this piece of history. On July 1, 1978, Dunning purchased the entire crater property. He had initially planned to buy only a small section, but when offered the complete site, he didn't refuse, since the farmer was seeking permission to fill the crater, the same fate that had already befallen the nearby Wysap crater 2 years earlier. Dunning's intervention proved crucial. Without his purchase, bulldozers would have eliminated this historic site within weeks, erasing one of the most significant physical reminders of the Great War's destructive power. In 1986, Dunning installed a wooden cross on the crater's rim using timber reclaimed from a demolished church near Durham, symbolically connecting the memorial to the Tyneside region that provided many of the fallen soldiers. Lightning struck the cross shortly after installation, requiring metal reinforcement bands for repairs. The discovery of human remains in October of 1998 highlighted the site's continuing significance as a burial ground. Visitors spotted bones protruding from the crater's edge, leading to the recovery of Private George Nugent from the Tyneside Scottish Regiment. After 84 years missing in action, Nugent received proper burial in July of 2000 with a small cross marking where his remains were found. Dunning established the Friends of Lochnager in 1989, bringing together war history enthusiasts who regularly visited the site. This organization committed itself to preserving the memory of Great War participants while supporting the crater's maintenance and upkeep. Dunning's vision transformed the site from a forgotten battlefield scar into a dedicated space for reflection and remembrance. He emphasized that the crater should serve all nations whose citizens suffered during the conflict, promoting peace and reconciliation rather than nationalist sentiment. Today, the crater hosts annual commemorative ceremonies on July 1st, marking the explosion's anniversary. These gatherings have continued for over 40 years, drawing international visitors who participate in remembrance activities for all war victims regardless of nationality. The ceremonies include poppy petal scattering into the crater itself.
If you want more videos about epic explosions, here's a few, including the one I previously discussed, as well as one about the Mitholtz disaster, where half of a mountain exploded in Switzerland. Or another one about the US facility where more nuclear explosions have been set off than anywhere else in the world. As always, thanks for watching. Now get lost.